Hi, hottie baddies. It is your favorite mentally ill mother trucker. I'm here with my co-host today. This is Alana. She very much so does not want to be here. She is not here for the energy. She is not here for the vibes. Today, I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite things to talk about, which is obsessive compulsive disorder. If you know anything about me, you know that one of my main personality traits is that I have quite a few mental health conditions. I have a laundry list. The one that really, I think, rules my life the most, and that was the hardest to get diagnosed, was obsessive compulsive disorder. First of all, I just wanted to say that this is not me diagnosing anyone. Rather, it is a video that I'm going to be talking about things that are obsessive compulsive disorder, how they've shown up in my life, and some misconceptions that I had heard that I've seen in the media that really made my diagnosis and coming into and accepting the fact that I have this mental health condition. And let's just get right into it. First, I wanted to talk about what is OCD. It is defined as a long-lasting disorder in which a person experiences uncontrollable and recurring thoughts or obsessions, engages in repetitive behaviors, compulsions, or both. People with OCD have time-consuming symptoms that can cause significant distress or interfere with daily life. Personally, what I had heard in the media and what had made it very difficult for me to come to terms with it was that it was mainly just people having to check a doorknob multiple times, which, yes, I understand. Sorry, she's here for moral support. What I think is really funny is whatever I considered as obsessive compulsive disorder was that one episode of Criminal Minds where one of the characters has to do everything in threes, and one of those things was arson.
The unsub is not a classical serial arsonist. He's someone who uses fire because of a completely different disorder.
Which is?
An extreme manifestation of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. He does everything in threes.
The next thing I wanted to do is to talk about my diagnosis personally. For me, most of my childhood, I had some things which I'll discuss later that really manifested itself into being OCD as an adult. My co-host decided to leave me because she's a hater and she was getting into food that she shouldn't, so I had to take a step back and come back. I didn't realize we're OCD, or my parents didn't think that was OCD, which has nothing to do with them, no shade to them. It's something that's kind of difficult to diagnose until later in life and you're a sentient human being and can participate in society. But for me, I had this period in high school where I really just did not want to go, and no one wants to go to high school, but it was to the point where I just did not care to see my friends. I did not care to do my homework. I did not care to get out of bed. And for me, that's where the depression manifests. Yes, I am diagnosed with depression, but some of the depression symptoms that I experienced ended up manifesting later as OCD, if that makes sense. It started off with me getting a diagnosis for depression. I was put on medication for depression. I was put on Zoloft, good old Zoloft. Every time I say that, I think of that one scene of The Fault in Our Stars.
She eats like a bird. She barely leaves the house.
I am not depressed, Mom.
She's reading the same book over and over.
She's depressed.
I'm not depressed.
But anyways, I was put on Zoloft for that, which also can help as OCD medication. I really wasn't diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder for a couple of months. So I had been put on a small dosage of medication. Will you quit? And that was super helpful in terms of just some of the things I was experiencing. Then I was diagnosed with anxiety because I would get panic attacks, as girlies do, and panic disorder. I then later was referred to a psychiatrist who I love. She's super sweet. She's super nice. And I was telling her some of the things I was experiencing because I did have traumatic events happen as a senior in high school that I will not discuss online and I will not put onto the internet. When I was talking to her, she's like, "Yeah, babe, you have OCD." And I was like, oh, perfect. Another personality trait for me. Gotta catch them all. But then she upped my dosage of Zoloft, which was perfect and worked for me. But then was maybe 6 to 8 months after I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. Now for the juicy part. This is the part that I'm most excited to talk about, which is things that happened to me as a child and now that made me realize now were just symptoms of OCD. This is so funny to me. Whenever I was a child, I went for a campaign for the Paralympics, which is really cool when you think about it. But when you're 8 years old and you've never seen anyone without limbs like me as a kid, it really manifested in my soul. And let me tell you why. So we go into cafeteria, we all sit down, we all file in. She's talking about the Paralympics. I wasn't really bothered, but it was when she decided to take off her prosthetic arm, and I had never seen anyone without a limb before. I fainted. I passed out. And I went to the nurse's office, and after that, I would not go out in public. As a child, I convinced myself if I went into a store or I went into a public place, I was convinced that I was going to see someone without a limb and that I was going to faint. I was not in any way, shape, or form trying to be ableist. I literally just did not, my brain could not comprehend the fact that people did not have limbs. And I think about that to this day, because this did not just last like 2 weeks. This was like I had to go be exposed to this girl at school to be able to go to school, to the point where I couldn't even watch freaking Dolphin Tale. Like, whenever they showed Dolphin Tale in class, I had to go to my counselor's office and sit there and read a book. That is how debilitating and how difficult this was for me as a child. And I think about that to this day, because of course my parents could not have known. They could not have known. They just thought I was just a kid in fear. Now that I look back on it and I've gone to therapy and I've talked about it, I was so afraid that I would not even go to school. Something else I really noticed, I am Christian. I'm very proud of it. I was baptized my freshman year of college into the Christian church because I grew up Catholic. Okay, keep this in mind. Somewhere else where this really manifested was in prayer. So when we would be sitting in like right before communion, and they read you the intentions and the people that you're praying for while receiving communion and then going back praying before they conclude the service, I would try to remember every single person in the list of people that they were talking about, in the list of like things that they were experiencing. I would try to remember every single name and pray for them all individually, including like my mom. I'd be like, I'm praying for my mom and praying for my dad and praying for all of this. And if I did not do that to fruition, like to completion, with complete accuracy, I was convinced that those people were going to die of whatever conditions they had. Like, let's say like Johnny Appleseed and his mom were really struggling financially. I was convinced that if I didn't pray for them, then they would pass away. Like, yes, I know I didn't have to pray for every single person, but because it had to be just right, and if I'd messed up, then those people would die. And if I didn't pray for them, if I didn't add them in there, I was convinced that they would die, and it would be my fault. Same thing with saying goodbye to people. I could not just not say goodbye to someone. If I didn't say goodbye to them, then I was convinced that the next time that I saw them or I had heard anything about them or from them, that they would be dead. That is not normal. Somewhere else where later in life that this really manifests, that really sticks with me, is I used to work at Dairy Queen. They would put me in the back corner of the building, and they would put me in drive-through. So something about me, and if you know this about me, I hate germs. I hate being sick. I hate the thought of being sick. If you are sick, then I do not want to be around you. I have thrown up. I'm convinced that your throw up is going to manifest into me throwing up, because I'm also afraid of throw up. When we were back there, I was convinced that every single person's card that I touched or money that I touched, if I had touched anything else in my body, then I would be contaminated. I'd be contaminated, and then I would get sick, and then I would get someone else sick, and then I would be an inconvenience. And it would make me so violently uncomfortable to the point where I would convince myself that I had to go back to the back of the dishes and wash my hands every single time. And the Dairy Queen I worked at specifically was right next to a huge sports complex. So people would be coming on Saturdays, on Sundays, after their games for their kids, and they would be getting food and they would be getting ice cream, which is perfectly fine. But the part that where it bugged me was I was convinced that if I touched their cards and we were super busy, and if I touched my phone, if I face, if I touched my hair, then it would be contaminated. And I wasn't clean. That is what it is. It was the end of the world. I wasn't clean enough. I was gross. Everyone was going to think I'm gross, and I have to wash my hands, and people are going to get sick because of me, because it just wasn't right. I was not clean enough. Like, I know logically that that does not make sense. Like, yeah, that's disgusting. Everyone's afraid of that, and no one likes feeling gross. But it was to the point where I was convinced that I was going to get sick, and I was going to get other people sick. And when this really played into my diagnosis was when I would have to wash my hands so much that they would bleed. They would be cracked and dead and bleeding. And it was to the point where I was talking to my psychiatrist about this. She was like, girl, that is a symptom of OCD, because I knew it wasn't logical to wash my hands to the point where I bled, but I had to. And I had to until I felt clean. It was bad. It would burn my hands. It would crack them. It would make them... And it would completely ruin my day. The thought of that would ruin my day. Girl, you got something up there. Something's up there. I named it, by the way. Her name is Felicia, because I was almost named Felicia.
Bye, Felicia.
And I'm convinced that Felicia is my alter ego. The cleanliness really still does like affect my day-to-day life now. Like, I have to feel clean to a certain extent. I have to shower every day. I have to wash my face. I was convinced after I'd had really bad acne that if I didn't do everything exactly in order, if I touched anything else, washing my face, even now, I have to do it in a certain order, and if not, then I have to start all over and like rewash my face, re-dry my face, re-put on products on my face, because it's just not right. But if I touch something and I feel gross, I have to go back and wash my hands. And sometimes I'll wash my hands 2, 3, 4 times. There's not a number associated with it. It's something that really does affect my day-to-day life. It takes me forever to get ready in the morning, like I said, because I have to do things in a certain order. If I don't do it in that order, then I have to take it off. And everyone has that problem. But the thing is, for me, it takes me over an hour to get ready, and I lose track of time. That's another thing. You lose track of time in these compulsions. In your mind, are not necessarily logical, but convinces you that those symptoms and those feelings of discomfort and those feelings of tension and stress are going to go away because you do those things. And learning that has been crazy because I am so much more in tune with the way I work and the way I think and the way I act. And I'm so much more in tune with my emotions. So, like, I know that, like, if something feels off and I feel super stressed and I feel gross, then I need to go take a shower. Which, again, isn't the worst thing in the world. It's not like I'm harming myself. But it's still just like, if I don't take a shower in an X amount of time, then I'm not going to be clean and I can't touch my bed because then my bed will be contaminated. I can't touch my food. I can't hug anyone. It's awful. It's awful. It's not fun. And it's not something silly that we need to be talking about and joking about online because it's very difficult. Like I was just saying, it is not something quirky and it's not something funny. When I was younger and people would be organizing their desks or would be organizing their rooms or showing me their room whenever I went over, or they were putting their pencils in a certain order, or they had their stuff organized, they'd always say, "Oh my goodness, I'm so OCD about that." Shut up. Those of us that actually have a problem, so difficult because my room's not clean. You saw maybe 2 vlogs ago that my room was not clean. My things are not always organized and I'm not always organized and I'm not always on time because you're not touching things in a certain pattern or a certain order. That your OCD somehow is not as valid as the like media representation of it because it's not something that's just funny. For me, it's getting ready in the morning. For me, it's feeling clean and taking a shower, and it's trying to do things like in your day-to-day life that you just struggle with because it doesn't feel correct. And it's not funny, it's not cute, it's difficult, it's debilitating. And again, this is not me diagnosing you, saying that if you have anxiety about these things, then like you have OCD. I'm not a doctor. This is just what I'm talking about. I could be up all night thinking about, oh, did I wash my sheets today? Did I wash my face? Did I brush my teeth? Like, do I feel clean? Does my space feel like it doesn't have germs on it? If the answer is no, then I'll get out of bed and I will go do those things and then I will go back to sleep. And sometimes that'll end up until 2 or 3 in the morning. It's not cute. It's not funny. It not something that we should be joking about. Oh, well, my room's not clean. Like, my OCD is going crazy. No, that's not what it is. This is one of those videos that I just felt that I needed to make. A, for the people in my life. If you're watching this, I love you. Thank you so much for helping me through my experiences with OCD whenever I am going through one of these spirals or one of these episodes. And it's not funny. It's not something that we should be joking about. And so I felt the need to make this video. Fuming, it makes me so angry. Now that I was a little negative, I did want to talk about some forms of media that did really help me growing up. If you've ever read the book Turtles All the Way Down, you would understand. I've not watched the movie because the book just means far too much to me and far too much to my experience as someone with OCD. I saw that, and her fear of getting C. diff, I believe, is something that I really resonate when it comes to me with germs. It's not necessarily to the extent of like, I'm convinced that I'm going to get a certain disease, but it's to the point where like, I understand the thought spirals. It feels like they're not going to end. It's like, well, then you're like, oh my gosh, I know it's not logical and I know it's not okay and I know it's not something that like makes sense to the quote unquote normal person. And especially when you're first starting to grow up and try to understand the way that you think and the way that you are, we need representation of young women, young people that experience these symptoms that might not be visible on the outside. It's very important for young people. It's very important for those of us who have experienced these things before. And I hope to see like more of it as we are talking about mental health and we are talking about disabilities and we are putting the effort into talking about these things that our fellow humans are experiencing. And I think it's super important. We need to de-influence the rumors and the quirkiness of it, and we need to advocate for those that have these issues. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know this was a more serious video and I got very heated because this is a topic I care about. It's something that really affects me in my day-to-day life. It's something that affects my day-to-day experiences, and it's just, I struggle a lot with it, and I just hope that this helps at least one person try to understand the things that they are going through and the things that they are experiencing. I brought Bonna back just to say goodbye to you all. I brought her back just to say goodbye to you all because we love you so much. We hope that you have a wonderful day. Please give this video a like and subscribe. It would help out a lot. It makes it a little more rewarding to make content. But we just wanted to say goodbye, didn't we? Bonna and I love you. We hope you have a good day. And that's it for this video. Bye, guys. Love you.